Welcome, BBCers, to episode number 190 of the Broken by Concept podcast, the number one solo queue educational and motivational podcast. Curtis, today we're going to start off the podcast exploring the topic of tilt. We're going to define it, what triggers it, what are some of the symptoms, understanding it, how do we deal with it. Obviously, it's a very big issue or things that people like to talk about. We get like comment all the time. How do I deal with tilt? Or, I'm just tilting, my journey is over. And tilt's probably a really big proponent of people just giving up or moving on or tilting with a champion. I think the term's thrown around a lot in the community. It's sort of just like, it's sort of lost its meaning, I think,
I'm tilted.
A little bit.
That's it.
Yeah, that's right. I'm tilted. I'm checked out.
But I think a lot of us we don't even view tilt the same way. It's a bit of an umbrella term for, I think, many things. So I think that's what we need to get into. I mean, I think it's important to start with defining tilt, right?
Yep. So I've got up a Wikipedia tilt, and it came up with this article here. It's got to do with poker, a lot of this one. So that's
that's where it originated, right?
We'll get into that. Let's get into that here. So I'm going to read. So bear with me, guys. We'll read some about tilt here. So let's define it first, Curtis. Yeah. All right, so tilt is a poker term for a state of mental or emotional confusion or frustration in which a player adopts a suboptimal strategy, usually resulting in the player becoming overly aggressive. Tilting is closely associated with another poker term, steam. I have no idea what that is. Placing an opponent on tilt or dealing with being on tilt oneself is an important aspect of poker. It is a relatively frequent occurrence due to frustration, animosity against other players, or simply bad luck. The term originated from pinball, where physically tilting the machine causes some games to flash the word tilt and freeze the flippers. So I think that's like when...
Yeah, so
the machine stops working and then you can't...
Right, yeah, because it's like you're cheating.
Yeah.
Right.
It must be like that, because you can't move the ball around.
You can't move the ball around, yeah, interesting.
Here we go, here's the next part. Yeah. Tilt is also common in other games, especially chess and esports. This is on the wiki for poker, right? Tilting in esports causes players to lose control due to anger. The most extreme reaction is termed a rage quit, angrily leaving the match or quitting the game. Physically turning off the device or breaking apart like a monitor or control device by smashing it.
Okay.
And that's what you'll see, the clips of, people smashing their keyboard tilt. So it's sort of funny that this is...
It's pretty interesting.
It's pretty interesting.
Does it say anything about chess, tilting in chess?
I think, no, that was about esports. I don't think people smash keyboards in chess. Someone let me know if people smash keyboards in chess. But it's not keyboard with chess.
No, but do they say anything about chess? What does tilting in chess look like? Do they have anything there?
No. They just say it's just in chess and esports. And esports seems like it's taken over the word of tilt.
Right, wow. Okay.
So next section here is common causes of tilt. The most common cause of tilt is losing, especially being defeated in a particular public and humiliating fashion. In poker, a bad beat can upset the mental equilibrium essential for optimal poker judgment, causing frustration. Another common cause of tilt is bad manners from other players causing frustration, which eventually leads to tilting.
I think we'll come to this. I think let's put a pin in it, right? There's a lot there to unpack.
No, I want to read a couple more here. A little bit more? All right. Because, we definitely can go from different section of this.
Yeah.
I just want to get the official wiki, Curtis. So, though not as commonly acknowledged or discussed, it is also quite possible to go on winner's tilt as a result of a positive trigger, such as winning unexpectedly or going on a string of good luck. Strong positive emotions can be just as dizzying and detrimental to one's play as negative ones. We talk a lot about the danger of win streak sometimes in the league.
It's a bit confusing, that word, though, winner's tilt.
Yeah.
Because tilt's like a negative thing, and then you're using,
they're sort of saying it's the reaction. So, you have, false confidence. It's like the other extreme.
You're being over confident, and then you're getting complacent.
Yeah, getting complacent, and then maybe you're gonna go back into the tilt. So tilting and winner's tilt can both lead to the same habits. I think I can see that. Yeah. And the last section here, I just wanted to read here. Advice when tilted. This is interesting. For the beginner player, the elimination or minimization of tilt is considered an essential improvement that can be made in play. For instance, in the strategic advice of Mike Caro, Many advanced players, after logging thousands of table hours, claim to have outgrown tilt and frustration, although other poker professionals admit it is still a leak in their game. And the last part here says, one commonly suggested way to fight tilt is to disregard the outcome of pots. So that's like the outcome of a game for League, particularly those that are statistically uncommon, so-called bad beats, when one puts a lot of chips in the pot with the best hand and still loses. Deserve little thought. They are the product of variance, not bad strategy. This mindset calls for the player to understand poker is a game of decisions and correct play in making the right bets over a long period of time. So the parallels is very much there.
Similar, but just touching on that last bit though, it's obviously a lot easier to identify what is a genuine bad beat, and when you make the correct play and lose, right? Like the feedbacks for two reasons. The feedback cycle is way quicker, right? To play a hand of poker is nowhere near as long as a game of League of Legends. Very short, sharp, minutes. Boom. But also, we can all objectively, everyone at that table can objectively agree upon what is or isn't a bad beat, kind of, because it's like, well, mathematically, I could really like reason out, okay, well, you probably have these hands because I've got this hand and this is the board. I see all these. I've got like, a very, very high chance of winning. We can all agree upon that. It's not like overly, look, there is a lot of nuance in poker, right? Reading people's tendencies and invisible things. I'm not going to get into that. But for the most part, it's like, well, I got double aces. I see an ace and then they get like quad kings or whatever the hell it is. It's like
a flop.
Yeah. And it's like, what the hell? this is like, we can all agree this is just bullshit. Right.
But then the other guy might be saying it's like, oh, like I read that, or like I knew the cards in their hand or something.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is that like, I think that in League, it's a lot harder to identify that you've done the right thing and you lose. Obviously for coaches and high level players, it's a lot easier. It's like, oh, I know that if I do this over a long period of time, I'm going to win. For a lot of people that are learning the game, or even obviously anyone below Grandmaster is actually going to struggle with that.
When you put it that way, like tilting in League is just a different ball
different
game.
Beast. It's a different beast.
You've got the duration of the game, the snowball nature of the game. In poker, your hand resets back to square one again.
No one is, and in poker, no one's influencing your game in a way. You know what I mean? It's you. You know what I mean? No one else is playing the hand with you, kind of. You know what I mean? Like,
you're talking about the team aspect.
The team aspect, yeah. And yeah, it's the feedback cycle. The feedback cycle in poker is way, way, way clearer. You could literally, in poker, I remember when we played online poker, we could do a hand, and then I could review the hand from your perspective and look at the cards you had, how you played that from that. Like, it's all the information's there. And if you understand the game of poker, you don't even need to have a super sophisticated degree of poker to understand why that series of events probably went the way it did, or maybe things you could have done better. But it's a lot less clear. A lot less clear in League.
The amount of variables.
The amount of variables is just overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. Champions.
That's why tilt can be so brutal.
Items.
Well, I want to say specifically, this is why I would say tilt is such a big problem in League, right? That's one of the big reasons. But, okay, so I think there's a lot here to unpack. There's a lot there. I think we should refer back to sections of that. But, at the start, it said something about here you read on the wiki. It said something about how tilt, go to the very start, it said here, tilting in esports causes players to lose control due to anger. That's one way it can manifest. I think it's important to identify that there are many types of tilting. And let's just speak from our personal experiences, Nathan. You tilt in a very unique way, Nathan.
Yes, I did. I would say the word that
I would say, no, you did. You do tilt in a very unique way. You are one of the most unique tilters. You're not, when you tilt, you do it in a very it's like toxic to yourself, self-deprecating, and it's not, you don't lash out. I don't think there's anger in a way. I wouldn't say anger is the way I would describe your tilt. Your tilt is very different. It's more...
I've thought about it a lot. This is my analysis. Yeah. So I had I've definitely dealt with tilt a lot better nowadays with that whole self-sabotage. What it was the 2022, my rank season. I was popping around Grandmaster for a long time. Remember I was playing like Java and Xin Zhao? And what I would essentially do is that I had created this narrative that unless I play perfectly early game, because my champions just completely drop off, games are just completely unwinnable. So what I'll do is, the way that I'll manifest tilt is that I play a Javan game and doesn't go the way, or like I make one mistake, I miss one EQ there. what I'm doing in the game is I need to constantly be bringing it back to that narrative that I shouldn't win games as Jarvan if I don't get an early lead or Zinzao, like if I stuff up and make an end of review mistake. So I would, in a way, sort of soft into the game a little bit. Very
Self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage. So then I can continually keep that narrative alive because that narrative was what I would latch onto. So it's sort of like narrative driven.
Yeah. Yeah, yours is very narrative. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on.
Because my view of the game it's like all early game. As jungler,
right.
Junglers have the most influence. So if I was to break that narrative and then start realizing the game's actually more so, early game is important, but mid game fights, you have plenty of opportunities to win the game, which is what I came to a realization for when I started getting Challenger the last couple of seasons. Because again, my view of the world would have been shattered. If I was able to still win games as Jarvan Zinzao, having bad early games.
Yes.
So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I had to constantly check that narrative. That's where a lot of people, they'll do is they'll tilt against champions like, I'll relate it to like Kassadin, right? Kassadin level 16. People's narrative is, I insta-lose. So they'll actually start checking out, start tilting very subtly against a Kassadin because to fit that narrative, that's their worldview. Kassadin level 16 auto wins the game. When we know that there's many ways you can
100%. And so I think a better way, because I just don't like the word, anger can be a way it manifests. But I think that the universal thing that we see with everyone who experiences their unique way of tilting is self-sabotaging behavior. I would say that's the universal thing we can all agree upon. It doesn't matter if it's your narrative-driven tilt or someone slamming their desk or someone kind of, being like having an elitist sort of mentality and then meeting some unrealistic expectation and then, soft inting or hard inting or AFKing or turning off the computer. It doesn't matter. Some of them may be angry. Some of them may be frustrated. Some of them may be demoralized. Some of them may be just helpless. It all manifests in some way, shape, or form, relating around self-sabotaging behavior.
They use the word in this one here where people start playing over-aggressive. That's what they do in poker.
That can happen. Yeah. I mean, that can be a thing. It's like,
but there's also as well, like more so checking out and
just checking out. That's another way. Yeah. Just becoming despondent and just like
rage splitting. Where you just like an 80 carry, just permanently split.
Right, but that would be more anger, right? That's kind of like. So I think it's important to note that I don't think tilt is in my eyes more of an umbrella term for many potential things. Okay, a better way to think about tilt. This is what I wrote down about tilt. Is that tilt, right? A better way to think about tilt is that it's actually the symptom, not the core problem, right? Tilt is what manifests based off a core problem, because the way people think of or talk about tilt, like you said before, Nathan, was people think, oh, I'm tilted and me tilting is the problem. No, you tilting is actually the symptom of a bigger core problem.
There's many other layers below the tilt by the time you get to tilt.
And think about the question that we typically get asked is like, how do I stop tilting? How do I prevent tilt from ruining my games? Blah, blah, tilt. Okay. A better question would be, how do I figure out what's causing my tilt? Given this is causing my tilt, how do I address that? So let's get into what are some examples, right? So I wrote down just some, potential things that can lead to tilt. Not accepting your level of play. Right, that's a great one. Not accepting your level of play. That's a tilt-inducing core problem.
Yep, thinking that you're better than you actually are.
Thinking you're better than you are, or actually, I've had this as well with people. They actually are better than they think they are, and so in a way, so that they actually can climb, but they've got a narrative that is.
It should be easy.
Or like, no, they actually are good enough to climb, but they don't believe they can get to the rank because in their mind, a diamond player, let's say that you got an emerald player, right? I had a client, I think it was this week. He said something about along the lines of like, he couldn't actually visualize himself improving. And like the self-sabotaging behavior was in a way like being scared to win.
It's sort of like afraid of success.
Yeah.
It's afraid of putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird. You have the confidence. You think you can do it, but you
don't want. You're scared to see what happens when you get there, or something. That can be a cause
of like scared of failure as well.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Fear of failure.
If I think that I am better, then I should be improving. If I don't reach that, what does that mean for my self-belief?
Right.
Which again shatters your worldview, your narrative. I had the same thing again that was to my 22 tilt where you talked about my self-sabotaging, my Java and Zinzao narrative. The other problem that I had to deal with was when I came back from running dials after all those years, when I started playing again the game in 2019, and I was struggling in Platinum, which is now Emerald Diamond, as coming from a challenger player all those years in season 3, 4, 5, 6, my mindset was I should just be easily able to climb. And I was like self-sabotaging. Well, my mindset was I thought if I just got more games in, I will be able to get there.
I think it did become self-sabotaging eventually. I think at the start you genuinely thought that if you just got the repetitions in, that you would get to where you were.
And then like 1,000 games in, that wasn't going to be the case anymore.
Yeah, I think and that's the failing to accept reality of your level of play. You couldn't, that was the tough pill to swallow. And then I think it did turn into a form of tilt because it was again, here we go, I'm going to queue up again and prove to myself that, you know, you're trying to prove now that you're getting unlucky or proving that you're trying to prove that you can't climb. I don't really, it became very toxic at one point. It was very
toxic, yeah. I mean, I think it's just simple. I was just purely attached to outcomes of games. Yeah. Not getting very, very specific with decision making.
So another example might be, you know, comparing yourself to others. You can get tilted because, you know, you're comparing yourself to a friend and then you go into a game and your friend's a higher rank and then you make a mistake. You're like, oh, you know, I'm never going to be that guy. How come that guy's playing with no process, no review, and he's that rank and I'm not? And then you get tilted because of that. And that makes you play worse in game, self-sabotaging behavior.
That one reminds me of expectation of time, like tilting. It's like, okay, if I'm losing this game, I'm now even further away from my ranked goal. Not being aware of or respecting the time and effort that Rook is
like required. Accepting what improving a league actually looks like. I mean, that is, I think, one of the things I wrote there about, not actually understanding what the league journey will look like. But how weird is that? You would never think that is something that causes tilt. Not understanding what the league journey actually is, which ties into the solo queue contract in a way. If you don't actually understand what the league journey is all about and what it's likely going to look like, that can be tilt-inducing because then you're going to be queuing up thinking that you're going to be climbing with a 75% win rate. You're going to be steamrolling up and up and up. You start losing games. And we said that last week with the OPGG episode, right? Where people writing in saying they barely play the game or they have a few rough losses and give up. And then they become tilted.
Yeah, they're tilted, yeah.
Crazy. And so what we're covering here, guys, we're just spitballing. These are all, I mean, I think there's probably hundreds of reasons as to what could be the root cause of your tilt. We're just giving you some examples here. Lacking a process and good fundamentals, right? Because you're lacking consistency. You're lacking that consistent early game. That can drive anyone mad. Poor self-talk, poor relationship with the game, lack of self-love, relationship with self. These can all cause massive problems with tilt, and the last one was focusing on LP.
You guess there's also outer game stuff, so you'd be more prone to tilting if you're tired.
That's a really common one, actually.
Hungry.
Yeah, that's a common one. I get people write in and say they get frustrated because they come back from work, they don't have a lot of energy, they don't play to the level that they think they should be playing at, and then that pisses them off because they're like, if only I just was more energetic, I would have won this game. And then they get tilted when they get tilted. Like they literally display self-sabotaging behavior because they're angry that they don't have more energy, I guess, rather than accepting the reality of their situation. So, you know, I'm sure there's many ways to tackle that. Maybe there's things you could be doing to have more energy, you know, whether that's changing napping or doing less games. Maybe instead of a 3-block, you do a 2-block or whatever the hell it is. So I think it's important to note that I just don't think it's that simple.
Yeah, it's just not that simple.
It's a symptom,
I mean,
not
all those potential problems that you listed, these are all things that could be triggering tilt.
That is how you tackle tilt. You get to the bottom of what is causing your tilt. We covered this a few episodes ago about the 5 whys. You feel like shit, why? And then you go, why? And then you can actually try and get to the root cause of what's actually going on. Okay, so let's go over some scenarios, Nathan, right? I think it'd be interesting to spitball. I mean, you've already covered one of yours, but, you know, spitball some ideas of examples of, you know, scenarios that can induce tilt, right? So I just got the first one here. You know, you queue up for a 3-block. You get 2 games in a row that your secondary roll. That happens sometimes. On the last game of your block, you finally get your roll. You're like, yes, this is it. Finally get to play my role. And then someone on your team AFKs at 20 minutes in a close game, and then you're left feeling tilted. That's a pretty, I would say not a common, but it happens. That can happen. That scenario can happen. And I mean, I think a lot of us could probably empathize. I think if I was in that situation, I'd be feeling pretty pissed.
I guess it's important to note from that scenario is that tilt it's very inevitable. I think it's very, when we talk about, we can't be expecting to be all monks.
No,
you know, but it's about identifying tilt, understanding when you're angry, knowing when to walk away, building tools to deal with it, reflecting on your week, your blocks.
So I want to, okay, so in that article, the Wikipedia article, there was a section of it that spoke about outgrowing tilt.
I like that word a lot.
I don't know, actually, thinking about it more, I don't know if I agree. Let's get into that. Let's talk about outgrowing tilt for
When
a
I
second.
think about outgrowing
What does it mean
tilt,
to you?
what it means to me is that, so again, everyone blanket tilts. Just there's
Yeah.
always levels of tilt and frustration you can have in a high competitive, fast-paced environment.
As long as if you care about something, you're probably going to
Exactly
tilt
right.
in some
Yeah,
way, shape,
you
or form.
care about it, right? You're going to get angry when you
course.
lose, you know? But there's levels to it. So let's say someone who I would say is younger, let's say you versus a professional versus someone who's younger, more prone to tilting quicker, having bigger reactions to tilts. Outgrowing is the reaction to tilt is much more reduced. So for example, let's use league LP terms. Someone who who's very new to the whole game, very young, very emotional still, loses 300 LP, but someone who's more mature and has outgrown tilt only loses, 50 LP or 2 games worth of LP in when they're tilted.
Okay.
That's the way I view it.
So what does it mean to outgrow tilt though? So it means because you said a lot of
It's
things
about
there.
understand experience. It's about experience.
So it's understanding what specifically?
a lot of the things we just listed before. Understanding the
What triggers
nature
your
of
tilt?
the game, understanding the LP system, like improve, like accepting level of play, pretty much all those things.
Okay.
Is becoming more experienced player, like understanding how it works, understanding that I'm not going to have like an 80% win rate.
Right. 'Cause I'm with you. I totally think that there is such a thing as outgrowing tilt, but I don't think it's helpful because I think there are a lot of people that grow up.
It's sort of
right?
the same to people just mature.
Yeah, which is not the case. There's people we see nowadays. You have 35-year-old babies, kids.
Yeah.
Right. And people that do not grow out of this. So I work with people all the time in my program that are
Yeah, I have.
old and tilt out.
I have
crazy.
30-year-olds that are spam pinging their teammates when they're not
You
coming
would think
to a
they're
play.
17-year-olds,
When
16-year-olds.
they're literally, if you look at the situation, they're on 20% mana or 10% mana. They can't even go to the play. It's
Right.
just, I get angry. I get ridiculous. Like, come on, dude. You're 30 years old. Come on.
That's my point. My point is that outgrowing it's almost condescending in a way. It's almost like just outgrow it, dude.
Yeah, it is.
You're old enough. And I
Yeah.
just don't really think that's the case. And so I think that you're right. I think some people can do it, but I think let's get more specific, right? Outgrowing. What does that mean? Okay, I think you're understanding what triggers you specifically. I think we all have differing tilt triggers. Right, this is what Jared Tendler talks about in his book about how we all have our own tilt triggers. For you, that might be, like you said before, having a game plan or having a way
Messing up the early game.
Messing up the early game. That's your tilt trigger. Now,
Yeah.
now simply being aware of your tilt trigger is going to increase your ability to manage that frustration that comes inevitably because you're expecting it.
You're seeing it. It's like, all right, it's just happened again. What's my response going to be?
And he talks about in his book, you can now inject logic into that situation because you're prepared for it, right? He talks about when you're frustrated, when you feel tilt is coming, you can inject logic because logic it helps us kind of cut through the fat.
That's a huge tool that I have. Yeah.
But you can only inject logic if you're aware of what's happening. Like it's like, okay, fuck, I messed up my game plan. I missed my Java and EQ. My early game's over. Okay. I've been here before. I understand. I can still win this game. The game's not over. Boom. You're injecting logic into the situation.
What's the next best decision? Give information
Boom.
right now on the map.
Right. So that I guess that comes from understanding what triggers your tilt. I think there is emotional discipline, if you will, or emotional control. We call it emotional regulation. Your ability to regulate your emotions. And I think that definitely comes with age, but I think it also is something that you train. It's like, okay, how do we train emotional regulation? Okay, well, one of my biggest things is not venting. That is a way of training emotional regulation. You have a frustrating experience. rather than, and this is where I actually disagree with Jared Tendler in his book. He actually advocates for venting in his book. I don't, because it actually lowers your emotional regulation. If you go after your game and you go straight into Discord, ha ha ha, look at my loss streak, fuck my jungler, ha ha, just another loss, just another bad game, bad teammates. This venting, what you're doing is you're actually telling yourself that it's okay to let go and express this frustration and experience this frustration, rather than being holding on to it, letting, like, as in like managing it, having the discipline to hold your tongue, stop typing, take a deep breath and let it go.
That's very difficult to do.
It's very, very difficult to do, but it is, and find a way to,
over time that builds.
It's a skill.
It's like a muscle.
It's a muscle. It is 100% a muscle.
You're building the discipline, emotional discipline, to hold your tongue by not venting
and not letting it bother you. What you're doing every time you don't vent, you're actually sending yourself a signal. This doesn't bother me. This is no big deal. It is no big deal.
You just vomit it out to the world.
It's just weak, really. And everyone put it freely. It is weak. The more you vent and let your emotions dictate your behavior, it weakens your mind. It weakens your emotional regulation.
Yep.
And so that's one skill, right? So there's emotional regulation. I think another element of outgrowing tilt might be, I guess, developing a toolkit. That's where the lull states come into play. It's like, okay, I'm a bit tilted. What's next? What's my job? What's the next neutral objective? What's the win condition? Deep breathing exercises. John talks about, recentering via deep breathing exercises. Having a bit of water. There's a toolkits that you can develop. Getting into the review. Ending your block early. That's a toolkit. Ending your block early. It's like, you know what? You play 2 games. You're feeling shit. You're frustrated. Ending your block early. That can
step away
from the PC sometimes. Talk to a friend. Maybe you're feeling shit. Talk to a friend. Get some perspective. Get someone to look over a VOD with you. Put a clip in the VOD questions channel. These are all, again, could very well be part of your toolkit. So I think that what a professional does, and I totally agree with you, they are way less prone to tilting because they have done these things. These are the underlying things that they've developed. And now I want to tie it back to what you said earlier off camera, which was, I like how you spoke about tilt in terms of a scale. So you want to kind of talk to me about what you were saying before about tilt on a scale? So
the way that I viewed it is, when you fill out those surveys where it's like, do you do this? And it's like, never, rarely, sometimes, all the time, right? So let's say on the extreme where people tilt every single game, the consequence of that, they're going to be losing hundreds of LP. But someone might be, they tilt like one, every now and then, but it's still like a problem. So I view it as like, where are you on the scale? And I guess that's going to be really indicative of your gameplay. Talking about, I like in the article where they said that in poker, it's a part of your game. It's inbuilt. Dealing with tilt is the skill of the game. Yeah. So if you're on the extreme end of I tilt all the time, then you're probably missing out on hundreds of LP or potential improvement.
It's actually, so you're absolutely spot on there. It's actually funny you say that.
People don't think about it like that. People think about it as tilt's just them going down versus if you manage tilt, it's going up. I kind of feel like in League, we view tilting as an inevitable thing that can't be fixed in a way. It's like part of the League experience. It's like, it's part of the experience in a way that can't be dealt with. It's like not the skill of the game.
Yeah, it's not a skill of the game.
People don't view it as a skill of the game.
They don't view it as a skill of the game. It's like, this is a thing. This happens. This is the way it is. You play League, you're going to get tilted.
And you can't get better at it.
You can't get better at it. That's just it.
It's like a fixed mindset towards
it. It is. It's like the League community has a fixed mindset towards tilt in general. That's like the baseline. But in poker, I think it's so well understood. Think about it. The websites we used to play tilt. Remember Full Tilt? That was literally the name of
everyone's hyper
the platform.
Aware of it. Yeah,
it's that. It's like it's literally part of the poker zeitgeist. So I think, I think it's really helpful to think of it on that scale. Not in terms of. So you spoke about the scale in terms of frequency, but I also think you have frequency and intensity. So you kind of have 2 scales. It's like, okay, well, how often do I experience tilt? If you are the 10 out of 10 every game to 1 out of 10, maybe once every 3 weeks. And then you're kind of somewhere in there, right? So that's one scale, but then you have intensity. It's okay. When I do tilt, how extreme is it? right? Is it to the point where I literally can't control myself and I'm going to play 17 games in a row and self-sabotage for the whole night?
I run it down. I smash my keyboard.
Right.
I abuse my family or my friends.
No, but we say that jokingly, the whole smashing keyboards and abusing people. But, you know, I mean, I'm just going to speak freely. I've had moments, one of my trigger points was back in the day when I was a kid with lag. I could not stand lag, lag and peripheral issues, anything to do with hardware.
Things that are out of your control.
Things that are completely out of my control that I cannot impact, that affect my level of play. It's like a really big, to the point where I was abusive in my family. Like I would yell at my brother at the top of my lungs. You heard me all the time. Like, God, you uploading or some shit. And then,
that I've heard hundreds of times, guys, on TeamSpeak.
Back in TeamSpeak back in the day. And I used to get so angry. We used to know another friend, I won't say his name, but you know who we're talking about, who also used to just lose his mind. And for some people, there are these things. And I would say it was less the frequency, more the severity. I think when I got angry and me and my friend got angry, it was 0 to 100, like in terms of frustration. It wasn't just a small bit of tilt. It was out of control.
That's zero emotional regulation.
Yeah,
I just have emotion and then spit it out versus
that's right.
actually thinking about
and
it.
I don't think I had any emotional regulation at that point in time. But, so I think it's important to think about, okay, where are you on the severity scale and where are you on that frequency scale? And that's going to determine, okay, is this a problem that is worth directing my attention to now or is it not? Right? If you're barely tilting and you don't think it's a big part of your gameplay, that's okay. You probably don't need to direct attention towards it. If it's a massive part of your journey, you feel like you're self-sabotaging hundreds of LP, that could be the difference between you climbing up 300 LP worth of rank, maybe more. So you got to use some common sense there. So, okay, I want to talk about some themes I've noticed, and these are some themes that were also discussed in the book, and I think these were quite interesting. See if we can relate these back to League.
Did you mention the book, by the way, Curtis?
I've got the book at home. The book is done by the author Jared Tendler. Okay. It's a book about, I think it's like the mental game of poker or something like that.
I think you might be right.
Mental game of poker. It's a great book about, there's a whole chapter on tilt that I got a lot of stuff from it, but but it's predominantly about poker if you're interested in poker.
The mental game of poker.
Mental game of poker. Yeah, that's the book I got. So it's good. Quite a practical book. A lot of toolkits and stuff. So one thing he spoke about was accumulation. Okay. Now we've referred to this kind of in a different way, not using this word, right? Where,
what does this mean?
Making the importance of making peace with blocks. So he talks about accumulation in terms of the anger or frustration that leads to you becoming tilted can often be the accumulation of unresolved events in the past, right? That's what kind of, so for example, let's say in poker, you had, multiple bad hands in a row, and then now, because you haven't let go of what happened in the past, you're letting those past events.
I see.
Or maybe that's happened in a past previous tournament where certain events you haven't let go of. It's like, oh, I'm just that sort of player that this happens to me, or you can't let go. You've got these unresolved things that have happened in the past that cause you to have a more severe reaction when you tilt.
Things at an identity level.
Potentially, yeah.
Well, I guess we've sort of used the recycle bin analogy. Is it emptying this recycle bin? Or is that more of an immediate thing? Because you're talking about things that are deep down stuff in the past.
It can. He doesn't really mention that. I think it can, though. Yeah. But I think he more just says, this is typically a theme of tilt where, things can accumulate. You haven't emptied that recycle bin, if you will. And now the recurring situations you're seeing again and again. And so I would say maybe you're becoming more vulnerable to getting tilted. And then even when you do get tilted, your reaction becomes more severe. So again, that's a classic example of not letting go of past events. So that was one theme, accumulation. Another one was becoming tilted because you are tilted. It's like the awareness of that you're playing bad because you're tilted.
This is very common in League, I think. Yeah.
Do you have any experiences with this one?
I think it's very. I hear it all the time from pro players. They're just angry that they're tilted, which is more inducing of tilt. This is really a simple.
They're angry because they're angry because they have let things impact their level of play.
It's like pathetic.
Yeah, it's that self-deprecating type thing. I would say nowadays that is more the tilt that I resonate, because you have that more narrative driven tilt. I would say my tilt's more self-deprecating.
Because your standards are so high for yourself. If you're not meeting those standards, you're just like, what?
It's like, that's just pathetic, Curtis.
Yeah.
Like, get your shit together. And then, yeah, I actually probably am guilty of this one. I'll be honest. I'll say I don't get tilted at other people. It's myself.
Yep.
It's like I made this, in my mind, disgusting mistake. And then
I'm letting that affect me.
And all that whole self-love and self-appreciation gets thrown out the window. I think I'm the biggest piece of shit in the world. And then it's like, now I'm pissed because I've let myself get pissed, and then I'm pissed at that fact. And then it just becomes this whirling cycle. And that's where you just got to walk away. You know, I've learned to just not even try to tackle that. But yeah, I think that is also quite common. I'm sure people have dealt with that one. So yeah, you make poorer quality decisions, and that can lead to some people becoming more tilted, let's say. You got this one here, massive. Okay, so there's obviously the unlucky games and situations. That's a very common one. Shit happens. We dwell on it. We don't let go. And then we have this one, massive disparities in level of play. I would say this is an extremely common one where, you know, we talk about the bell curve. You know, you have one game where you play really well, or you think you're playing really well, right?
Things click in the game.
Lucky game, right? Good game for your champ, whatever. And then the next game, you play terribly. And the fact that exists, people get so tilted, so frustrated. That's like, well, how can this game I'm going 8-0 and this game I'm going 1-6? The fact that there is that disparity in their level of play is tilt-inducing within itself.
Yep.
Now, they actually talk about that in poker a lot. And one of the core themes of this, what he spoke about in the book, was people often aren't aware of their level of play. So the mistakes they're making, right, they think that it's not their mistake. It's other people, it's the game, bad beats, whatever. But in reality, they're just making bad decisions and they think they're better than they are. So the disparity in their level of play actually has nothing to do with, you know, unlucky teams, or in the case of poker, unlucky hands or whatever. It's just all you, but you're unaware of the fact that it is you. And you have this inconsistent fundamentals that you haven't worked on.
That's why it's so important not to look at the scoreline of games. Like the 16-2 game, then your next game is 1-7. You can your brain can start coming up with some great narratives around the game. But unless you get specific in those games, then it's not going to make sense. You're going to be quite confused.
The number one narrative that comes out of that is, look at how good I am. I'm 16-2 this game. This is how I should just be winning every game. And then this game, look how bad my teammates are. Surely, if I'm 16-2 in this game, and we lose this next game, I'm going 1-6. It can't be my fault. It's impossible to be my fault.
I've got 16-2. I got a pentakill that game.
Right. And yeah, you're spot on. And that's a sign that your fundamentals, though, are shit. And you need to bring up your fundamentals. Your consistency of your first 8 minutes.
And reviewing your wins is important because you need to figure out whether you got lucky. I review my wins all the time and I say, this is pretty bad. Like, things just sort of clicked. It's so important.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, sometimes you can just genuinely get lucky. Like, I had a game doing some live commentaries yesterday. I said it in game when I was doing the live commentary. I'm like, yeah, this was actually very sketchy. This could have easily gone the wrong way. And when I actually looked at that moment. I'm like, yeah, this actually was a pretty bad play. They just messed this up. You know, it's important to own the fact that sometimes, yeah, you are going to get lucky. And I popped off that game, obviously, because you get a double kill in the early game or something. No shit. It's easy to play from a double kill with double buffs. But you got to own that. And a lot of people are too proud to own that.
They're too proud. I actually had because I've been working on a volley bear guide for my Sol 2 school, my below platinum program. I had a game that I was going to upload as a live commentary. And I sort of looked at the enemy jungler's perspective. Because I was like, this game's just so... I even said it when I was commentating over it. This game's just so easy. Them jungler put no pressure on. I looked at their comp, right? They had like a Karthus... I can't remember the top lane, but they had like a Senna, Smolder, and like a... some mage mid lane. And I'm like, well, what options does the enemy jungler have? They can't... It's very... If we get any sort of lead, they can't contest any objective. I can take all their camps. So, you know, I could look at that game like, oh, I played so good. But if you actually put yourself in the shoes of the enemy team, my team's never going to get caught mid because they have no engage tools. I can just farm my camps and just sort of just ignore a lot of things, just wait for the next objective. There's no threat on my team. It's just an easy game. And I identified, I was like, and I asked the question, is this even worth uploading? Because this is not that realistic.
Not realistic.
Even though it looks like I carried the game.
There's a difference between you playing well and kind of earning that win versus just kind of being gifted and handed that win.
Yeah.
It's not to say you didn't play bad. I mean,
I did my job.
Yeah, you did your job, but, doing your job probably won't create this scenario.
Yes. It's going to be much more challenging, and you have more difficult problems to solve.
That's actually what, by the way, a bit of a tangent. That's why do you talk about in your Soul 2 what it means to have a good game for that champion? Like what comps you're like, for example, Volibear, would you have a section in your guide where you say, okay, it's going to be a pretty good Volibear game when you see this?
I see.
Do you have that?
Not so much for the champs. For champs like Lilia, I'll talk about champs when you're against heavy melee. You can not much threat on you. Not many ranged champions like Syndra and all that sort of stuff that you can sort of just run around in circles. Those games are going to be hard. You need to realize that they're hard games. Yeah.
Because I think it's very valuable.
I think it's very valuable because that helps. That's a toolkit for tilts. Because if you know this is a hard game, you're not going to put too much weight on it. It's really important.
And it goes vice versa. It's like, well, if this is a really good game for your champion and you win, it's like, well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's not going to explain all of it, but it's a contributing factor. So that's one of the reasons, because I even make a note. I'm like, I'm telling you this information, not because it's going to prevent you shouldn't pick this champ in this game. It's like, it's just going to be a hard game. And now I just want to talk a little bit about dealing with tilt. Now we have kind of touched on this a little bit, but I kind of came up with this myself. There are kind of 3 ways to deal with tilt, right? You have pre-tilt preparations, like things that you do before to prevent you from getting tilted in the first place. You have things that, while you are tilted, things to mitigate the severity of your tilt. And then, okay, after the game's done, after you've tilted, how do we mitigate the damage control? So I've just made a few little notes here. We'll start with maybe pre-tilt mitigation.
Yep.
I mean, that's stuff like solo queue contracts, right? Managing your expectations, solo queue contract, understanding what the league journey is going to be like. And I think, this is why solo queue contract, I think, is so goddamn effective, right? It's like when shit hits the fan, when things don't go your way, you're not confused. You're not as confused. You're not as taken aback from, okay, shit, yeah, this is going to happen. I wrote that down. I know this is going to happen. And then muting all. I've got muting all as well.
Fantastic. My pre-games one for me personally would be, firstly, sleep, making sure that, I'm getting enough sleep. Number 2, playing the same time during the day, so I know that this is intense time. Let's play my 3 block. Sitting up on my chair, I don't know if it's just me, I talk about it, but having good posture and actually sitting in your chair before a game and like putting your keyboard in the right position and mouse is so important for me for just being into an intense mode and being as a jungler, like the F key in information collection. My results are significantly different when I am F keying, spam F keying, when I'm collecting more information. The game's just way easier.
So these are kind of things that you do it's like getting you into the right headspace as well. It's more of a headspace mindset.
Like I'm just so confident when I know it doesn't matter what happens in the game, I'm operating with max information. So I have a massive advantage over my opponents because it's very rare.
But a lot of what you said there, even the pre-game, like getting up in your chair, moving your mouse and keyboard into the right position, it seems like it's like a borderline ritual.
Yeah, it's like a sort of ritual, yeah.
And it's like you're getting yourself ready, like going onto the battlefield. You're like getting yourself into the right headspace.
There's no excuse to tilt when I'm doing sort of that,
But if you're like sloppy and like...
Yeah, I'm going to be tilting
you're
way
vulnerable.
easier. 100%.
Like you're alt-tabbing and shit, watching YouTube, like you're loading into the game.
That's a big one, yeah. Especially when we have long queue times, So like when
you're more vulnerable.
On YouTube, I'm so much more vulnerable to getting frustrated from things.
I was even just what we mentioned before, like realizing, okay, this is likely going to be a hard game. Looking at the comps, it's like, I know it could very well be a very hard game.
It's funny for me. I actually play better in the hard games.
Right.
Because I'm so excited to bust my balls. Because I know how complacent the enemy team will be. Like, we outscale. And I'm just playing beautiful League of Legends.
But I will say, I think that's a skill that probably me and you have, or like people that understand the game really well, right? Because you already understand that information. But imagine someone in Silver... It's like they got this like really hard game with quad AP. It's like you're going in. I'm managing my expectations pretty goddamn hard. It's like you've got quad AP into a Mundo. It's like I could play out of my mind this game. Probably still gonna lose. And I think that can help for tilt. Now let's talk about when you're experiencing tilt. Right. And the 2 things I wrote here was, deep breathing that we mentioned before, high quality questions in the lull states to recalibrate.
Yeah.
Anything else that comes to mind here?
First question I would ask is, I'll re-sit in my chair again,
Right.
drink some water, and smell some MF keys.
That's your ritual, yeah.
That's my ritual. And
I love that.
And the same, what's next? What's next? What's the next best decision? Who's my win condition? Who needs to base? Red light, green light concept that I talk about.
Yep. Head down, focus on what you got to do. Just get rid of all the distractions.
Fully present. That's actually a thing where I guess that's what tilting is. You're not present anymore. You're just completely in your head. You're not taking.
You're not
living in
focused on the task at hand. Your mind's wandering.
You're in fairyland when you're tilting.
Yeah, no, I think, and asking those questions and doing what you do there, water. Okay, what's next? You're soaking in information. You're bringing things to the forefront of your mind. It's like, boom. Okay, this is what I got to do, and it's like this is what we're talking about. It's a distraction in a way. It's like if I do this, my mind doesn't even have the opportunity to wander off to Narnia.
That's the thing. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, it's like a positive. I'm distraction. I'm trying to beat my mind. So it's sort of what you're going to war with your mind in a way. You got to build tools and tactics to trick yourself. I guess that's what a lot of the mitigating tilt is for me, at least.
And we've got kind of post-tilt damage control. That's things like, walking away from the PC, the no venting.
Reviewing?
Yep, reviewing later on.
So then it makes sense.
High quality questions. And this is a personal one. I like complimenting the enemy. For me, it's like, that guy just played well.
Yeah.
That guy was just well played to him. Like, I made a mistake even this morning. I played a live commentary and some guy just did a really good play. I'm like, he picked me and I had to waste my ult. I'm like, yeah.
I'll say that a lot with roams. It's like, wow, that was a really good roam by them. Didn't expect that. Like a classic one is where you'll see like a Katarina or Kiana or Talon. They completely skip a mid-wave.
Just run straight out of base.
Straight out into a lane. It's like, that's just well played.
Well played. I can't predict that. No. I don't know you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Well played. Because you know what? I think the reason why that is effective is because you're letting go of your ego. Because when you're up on your high horse, I'm better than this guy. I got to be better. I got to beat these guys. Then you're much more vulnerable to tilt. Because you're taking things personally. Things are more impactful, more emotional. But when you're just complimenting, oh yeah, well played, dude. It's just like you're way more. I don't know. You're just less phased. You don't have anything to prove. I'm not there to prove that I'm better than anyone. It's me versus myself.
Yeah. The me versus myself mindset is essential for League.
And no one gives a shit how good or bad you are at the game.
No one cares.
No one actually gives a shit.
Your rank, people are going to forget it. People say like, oh, look at you, you're a Diamond 4 hard stuck. That person's forgot about you in the next hour.
3 minutes. 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, literally 3 minutes.
Some guy on the other side of the country.
They got their own problems to deal with.
Exactly. So I think that covers a lot of, it gives a lot of people, I think, hopefully, things to think about with tilt.
That's what we wanted this segment to be. Just think about, I want you guys to think about where you think you are on the scale. I like that second scale that you introduced about when you do tilt, how intense is it? Because you might tilt you might be a 1 on the scale, but when you do tilt, it's quite intense. You'll quit the game. I would probably see that with a lot of people that think they're like sort of monks on the rift. That's maybe what they pride themselves in, but when they do tilt, that's like, bam, give up on this champion, my rank journey.
And that can be just as bad. Especially if you're quitting and taking a break, that can be just as bad.
Exactly right. All right, so typically we were going to go into the low elo, high elo segment. We've put a pause in it. For now, we've had some comments of people saying, it's a podcast. We should probably be talking more about things than showing gameplay. We still have the Curtis clip that we'll do, but currently we're going to put a pin in it. We might have some other ideas that we'll explore in the future with more gameplay involved in the Broken by Concept podcast because we love getting into the details here. All right, Summoner School now, Curtis. This is a bit of a short one. The title of this one is Learning to Play League of Legends, and this is by NoApple6191. This one, bit of a small post. I'll tell you why I chose this in a moment. 11 upvotes, 36 comments. Hi, I'm new to League of Legends and I haven't played any ranked matches yet. I'm not at a high enough level. So this is, probably the level 20 or whatever at the moment. I've chosen to play Aurelia since she's the champion I have the most fun with. In some games, when things are going really well for me, I can usually handle a 1v2 situation. However, I'm unsure if I'm making a mistake Sometimes when I get ganked by 3 opponents and manage to kill 2 of them, I've been called an inter. Is that something I shouldn't be doing? Should I just stay back and play safe if I'm ahead? I've tried looking on YouTube, but I can't find anything specifically addressing this issue. So the reason that I chose this post, Curtis, is sort of just a reminder of how much work we've got to do. This is a post that is completely out to lunch. Beginners struggle. They really struggle. And this is someone who's on this Reddit, probably looking at things and I don't know how new this person is, but just all the red flags of gonna struggle learning the game. Playing Aurelia, number one of the hardest champs in the game, probably. General things talking about like 1v2 situations, asking should I just stay back and play safe if I'm ahead, like very sort of binary. We've got a long way to go, Curtis, and looking at some of the comments here, the top comment here was saying, if you've been ganked by a jungler or mid laner, it's probably because your jungler or mid laner are playing poorly or you don't pay enough attention to where enemy champs are. If you get 2 kills out of those ganks, I would think it should allow your team more opportunities to invade enemy jungle or 4v2 bot lane and take Drake. If you just don't take the fight, you will lose because that way their top lane isn't getting an advantage over another 2 are just wasting time. League would be a lot different game if this sort of stuff was true. It's very sort of reminded to people. Yeah. Like, it's so funny because we sort of contradict ourselves, Curtis, because we're a pure talking podcast. But like these type of questions, comments, they're just they're dragging your attention away from, you got to bring it back to basics, the absolute fundamentals, understand what beginner journeys will look like. That's why I chose the post, Curtis. What are some thoughts?
I really think that if you're not even level 30, you shouldn't even worry about anything. Just play, man. Play. Even with Aurelia, play Aurelia.
Yeah, if you play Aurelia and it's fine, go for it.
And again, I really think there is something to it. I'm talking pre-level 30. There is something to really just dicking around. Really just dick around. Because again, you are going to have some good scenarios and bad scenarios. That's okay. We can figure that out later. But pre-level 30, not even level 30 yet, you just got to play a lot of games and feel out what the champs do. You don't even need to really understand it yet. And look, I understand we have a long way to go. I totally agree. But I also think that, oh man, it's hard. It's really, really hard because you would think that, okay, getting advice at the beginning of your journey would be, you would think that I'm doing the right thing. I'm being proactive, right? I'm getting advice from the community. I want to make sure I'm developing good habits. But that would only be the case if the advice you were getting is from someone that knows how to give advice, right? Think about this for a second, right? I'm genuinely curious. How many industries out there? Well, let's say we're talking about drawing, other sports, other skills, whether it's woodwork, chess, painting, whatever. You go into like a Reddit of that and you decide, I'm learning this skill. I'm learning how to paint. What should I do? Well, how should I start here? I'm assuming, and I could be completely delusional here, I'm assuming that you would get some pretty solid advice.
Yeah.
The thing with League is that you can get genuinely massive completely detrimental advice that is going to completely throw you in the wrong way. Advice that will be upvoted by other people. Advice that people think they're being helpful, but they're actually tarnishing their journey. We're that early on in the industry that the advice that the average person would give would actually be completely wrong.
You would be right if you're doing think about woodwork. You know why people will be able to give such easier advice to that person is because everyone has sort of probably a similar, they might go down this, start doing this sort of constructing these type of structures with the wood and stuff like that. And everyone will probably have a general consensus of where people should start, what a journey will look like, getting more advanced techniques. But with League, because there's so many different, you can have your journey can look completely different. You can play Yuumi to level 30 and then, be playing Yuumi and just
never develop any certain skills. Yeah,
that's right. Right. There's so many different skills in League that no one can, it's just people suck at giving advice because everyone's journey is so
well
different.
I think you're spot on. Because the advice that we would give is get specific to the champion. Learn how to deal damage with Aurelia. What does it look like to deal damage with Aurelia?
How to win games with Aurelia.
How do we go? Like specifically, how do you kill people with Aurelia?
Yeah.
What's important? You got to hit your E. You got to play off your R cooldown. You got to use minions, prep minions. Like just get specific with Aurelia. Fuck everything else. All the strategy, throw it out the window. Just focus on dealing damage with Aurelia.
And that's the thing. The strategy thing is the first thing everyone goes towards, right? Everyone wants the strategy of the game, which is the strategy of the game when you're learning League is completely irrelevant. Almost, I would say.
Yeah, and that's hard because the game itself is branded as a pretty strategic game as well, right? So, and the way that it's designed, intuitively, it does feel more like a strategy oriented game, and it is, but not at the beginning.
No.
So. Yeah, I mean, it's a reminder. We have a very long way to go, and I think it's a great little bookmark into where we are in 2024 in the League community.
It is, yes.
I think it's really what it is. It's a time capsule. Just leave it here, chuck it away, and we'll come back 5 years later and be like, holy moly, let's see how Reddit has evolved.
Yeah, specifically the Summoner School Reddit. All right,
moving on to Curtis's clips.
Yep.
Let's get into the details. And welcome everyone to Curtis's Clip Corner. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at today, what we're going to be talking about is my response to a situation. So I was doing this live commentary in the Discord, and I had this beautiful, flawless early lane, this Victor into Yone. And it was one of those games where I just knew, again, off comps, I had to play this game really well. I had probably the worst mid-jungle 2v2 in the game, which was Victor Nidalee. Absolutely terrible. And I knew that I had to play the game perfectly. And so in the heat of the moment, I get this reset. I got the beautiful Lost Chapter recall. And off my recall, I see this dive. And I just no hesitation TP. Now, I remember, okay, this is in the moment, I'm like, shit. Okay, that was a bad TP. Yeah. And then I just face check like an idiot. I die. And you'll see here, I'll just play it out a little bit longer. Basically, the enemy now dive me under the tower. I could have gone TP back mid. Yone had no TP as well. Would have had a freeze. It would have been an amazing scenario. Fast forwarding a little bit, they dive me. I burn my flash. And, obviously from this situation, I already knew the game is just basically over, but it's a really, really, really hard game here.
It's an end of review moment.
End of review moment. And so that's not what we're going to talk about. I just want to set the scene. What was interesting is my response to the situation. So during the live commentary, I talk about what my mindset is in the moment. I'm like, okay, I'm now in a really bad situation. That is an end of review mistake. I need to review that after. But what do I got to do next? All right, that's shit. Okay, we make mistakes, move on. What do I got to do next? And so I just went on. And look, we still lost this game, but I made them sweat for their LP. I end up becoming a massive threat in this game, and we actually stall out the game. Look at this. I farm like a machine.
Yeah.
Look at that. I had this bad first reset. We skim forward the game. I'm like, I farm like really, really, really well. We nearly bring the game back to a win from that scenario. Now, I went after the game ended. We inevitably lost, and I said, "What do you guys think about that game?" And the people that were watching, they said, "Curtis, I'm just impressed how you responded to this situation. Because if that were me, if I make that mistake, I am checked out. I'm self-deprecating. I'm going to
tilted.
I'm going to tilt. I'm going to talk down to myself. I'm going to say I'm such an idiot. I'm going to dwell on that mistake. And I kept saying, I'm going to make them sweat for their LP. I'm going to make them sweat for their LP. And I just kept doing what I could in the moment. And they said, well, Curtis, how are you able to do that? What advice would you give? How are you able to just move on, keep your attention focused on the next play? And I think I said a few things. I said, number one, there was the toolkit we mentioned, which is the high quality questions, distracting yourself with the details. Is that. The other one is, I understand that League's an incredibly difficult game. And then this helps me two ways. Number one, I'm going to make mistakes. When I enter a game, I don't think that I'm going to play the game perfectly. I know that at some point in that game, I'm going to make mistakes. All right, that's inevitable. So when I do make a mistake, it's not like I'm shocked. It's not like, wow, that shouldn't have happened. No, that's my level of play. That's the reality. So there's that. But the second thing, I know the enemy aren't going to play perfectly. If I'm making mistakes, they're probably going to be making mistakes. So just because I'm on the back foot, it's not like they're going to be SKT and end the game perfectly in 15, 20 minutes and snowball perfect. No, they're going to get complacent. They're going to fuck up their resets. They're going to overcommit. They're going to give bounties. They're going to make mistakes. And they did. And they said, well, how did you know? I'm like, that's just League of Legends. The game is a hard game. No one plays perfectly. That's what you sign up for. And it's the combination of the distraction of the details, distracting myself with details, the understanding that game is an incredibly hard game. I'm going to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. And if I make them sweat for their LP, who knows? Maybe there's a chance I win this game.
Do you think it's fun to make them sweat for their LP?
I do.
I actually like the challenge. I like the problem solving.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm
on the back foot.
Win condition. Yeah, I'm on the back. For some reason,
I have to play really, really well now.
Yeah. Because when you win that game, you're like, dude, I'm just the best League of Legends
But
player.
Even if you don't win, it's kind of just, I don't know.
You're sort of like proud of yourself a little bit that I busted my balls and because it's like the next game, the game doesn't 100%. Go this way. Good luck.
It's a confidence booster.
Yeah.
I stalled this game out what would have been a 15-minute loss to a 30-minute game, and I nearly won, and we could have won if I just made like one or two little things differently. You know, I feel way better going into my next game. If I gave up and just checked out and went 0-5 and end the game at 15 minutes, I feel way worse heading into my next game. You feel shit. You feel low confidence. It's like, wow, it was a fucking waste of time. And that, you know, you're just in this negative headspace. You know, you're in a really toxic, negative headspace.
It's like that narrative where people say, well, the game's over. I should be time efficient and FF. But you get into that negative headspace.
It's theoretical.
It's like you're a loser.
Because this is what people okay, look, we're not going to sit here and say that doesn't work this works for everyone, right? But from what I've experienced in my solo queue is that there is a cost to checking out. There's a cost. We're not robots. We don't just be like, oh, the game is over. Let's quick FF. And you have this completely baseline kind of like state of mind where you're just not impacted any way, shape or form. No, you're pissed. You're probably a little bit frustrated. You're angry. You want to hurry up and get into the next game. And then you're probably going to be eager to make up for that game. No, that's not we are humans after all. Now, I'm sure there are some people that have very, very, they can make peace with that game and move on and still give up. But I've always struggled with that. I feel like when I check out, I find it hard to get out of that negative spiral. And I find myself more inclined to either alt tab or skip the process or just get complacent. That's at least what I've noticed and with myself.
Going back to the not venting that we talked about, it's like building the muscle.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on. There is something to be said about, okay, I'm in a shitty situation. The game is really hard, but I'm going to persevere.
It's a muscle.
It's a muscle. You're building that the ability to get knocked down and come back.
Versus training yourself to constantly be FFing and giving up. You're giving up type person.
Exactly. It's like every time shit hits the fan, my default response is I want to give up FF, get out. You know, people jokingly FF and just get me out. Well, in a way, you know, we know that it can have subconscious effects on your mentality and your demeanor and everything. So
great. Love it. I love the questions from your community of seeing this and saying...
Because how interesting that they didn't comment on the gameplay.
No.
They commented on the mental.
The mental
I thought that was so fascinating.
Yeah. League is such a mental game.
Moving on.
All right. Mailbag time. Almost forgot. Away we go. Jingle song. Alrighty then. Our first question here comes from Anonymous. This person wanted to remain anonymous. Trying to help a friend is the title of the email. Hello, Nathan and Curtis. I've been a BBC listener for about 3 years now. It's really helped me change my view of LOL from a negative one where I always flame my team and nothing was ever my fault, to reviewing my games and only focusing on doing my job to the best of my ability every game. I always find it's funny. It's so simple, that line, but it's just like just struggling. There's that thing. It's like the self-reflection. Like, this was my negative view where I always blame my team and nothing was ever my fault. Like, imagine if that was your perspective in life, you know?
Yeah.
It's just so funny.
No, I mean, we've all been there, right?
It's so funny though, isn't it? Right? But a lot of people don't realize that that's their mindset in the
yeah.
moment, right? It's such a simple line. It's like, that makes sense. No,
but that's with everything though. Like, you could say that about anything. It's like, oh yeah, I realized I just had to go to the gym. Or I just had to eat healthy.
Yeah,
you know?
It is true.
Like, we could say the same thing. Yeah. Why did it take us so long to go to the gym?
Yeah.
It's like, no shit. You gotta, like, you know? You just don't know. You just get stuck in the loop.
It's like the basic things are the most obvious. Like what's that word? It's like the simple answer is usually the correct answer, or
Yeah. Is that Occam's razor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have a friend who is also a BBC listener who is currently low bronze, high iron jungle main, the same role as me. I tried to help him as much as possible, but he's very bad at taking criticism. He always thinks he is correct about every opinion he has on the game. I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but as a platinum jungle main, I feel like I know enough to help him. Do you guys feel like it's a lost cause to constantly be given advice to someone who doesn't listen, or is there a way I can break through to him? He constantly tells me he wants to get better and get out of bronze, but any advice I try and give him, I feel goes in one ear and out the other. Thanks for your time, lads. BBC forever. So we've talked before about helping friends that don't want to be helped, and the old adage of you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. But this person's saying he wants to get better. And he listens, and even his friend listens to this podcast as well.
I think there's a very big difference between what people say and how they act.
Yes, action.
Talk about last episode. From the actions alone, it doesn't seem like they're ready to improve.
That's right.
Again, this is quite, I guess a sad way of looking at it, but in our experience, it's been that sometimes some people need to hit rock bottom before they're willing to take any advice. And so I think if it were me, if that were my friend, I would just say, okay, I'm here to help you when you're ready. But until you're going to listen to my advice, I'm not going to help you. So it's simple. It's like you either accept my advice and do what I say, even blindly. Just do this. See how it goes for 2 weeks.
Exactly what I did to get to platinum. This will help you get out.
And follow blindly, even if you disagree, right? Or nothing at all, right? And then and usually what happens is that someone gets so desperate in their journey, if they do really want to improve, that they will be willing to try anything and do anything. And that is when you swoop in. That would be my 2 cents.
Yep, I think it's simple. I think that what he says and his actions are 2 different things. Best thing you can do is just lead by example, I think, as well. Keep chipping away. Keep, weave in. It's like, I reviewed this game. I made all these mistakes. It was my fault. Because it seems like that, he's still obviously in that situation of blaming his teammates. And then eventually he'll be like, oh, my friend's is actually looking quite successful. Wow, he made it to Emerald. Wow, he made it to Diamond. That will inspire him, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I think you raise a really good point. And then you want it to get to the point where he's asking you, how would you approach this situation? That's the point you want to get to.
Yeah, he needs to be asking the question. You come into you.
Exactly. It needs to be the other way
not
around.
You shoving in his face.
That's probably going to happen, like you said, if you inspire him and you start to get higher and higher and he hears the way you talk about the game.
Because, the other thing as well is what it could be is that he is too prideful or ego. It's like, I got to do it myself. Right?
And that's okay. If he doesn't want your help, then that's also okay, right? I mean, it's his journey at the end of the day. Or if he's that desperate, join Nathan's Salto School. And then he will
fix him up.
And Nathan will fix him up and he'll be on the right track. So one of 2 options there, really.
All right. My next question here comes from Price. The title of this email is Preparing Myself for Difficult Life Situations. Just flat out links his OPG at the front, by the way. This is awesome. Get some context. Wow. He's a master tier player here.
Price, I believe he's from the MLA.
Is he? He plays Nico, 63% win rate?
Yep.
No? Okay.
I believe this is from the MLA.
All right. Hello, Nathan and Curtis. I wanted to ask how you might prime yourself mentally to deal with difficult or mentally taxing life situations in tandem with League. Recently, I started a new job and it's my first out of the cocoon position where I'm not necessarily given the benefit of the doubt due to my inexperience, or I'm mentored by someone that knew me as a college student. So there's already a level of unease and stress going into. However, my first day really left me with a bad impression. The people I met really left me feeling like it's going to be a difficult work environment. Some may be physically uncomfortable with how poor their social skills were. Welcome to the workforce. Now, maybe this is just a first day issue, but from my studies in graduate school, this is pretty much the bottom of the barrel for onboarding new hires. Historically, I've struggled with most Historically, I've struggled the most with motivation in league when I have a difficult time with my real life situation and if I'm having a rough league patch. I'm currently at a rank where I don't feel comfortable taking an extended break to focus on my professional setting, as this could be an indefinite problem. So I want to try set myself up for the most success on the rift possible in the face of this new challenge. Do you have any advice for how to handle this type of situation? I will say I'm more disciplined than in the past when I've had these challenges, but this is a different type of beast. My question to you, Curtis, is when you did that whole university playing pro solo queue, that period in Dials in like 2016, was that... Oh, you were working and university surveying and you were playing League Pro League. Was that would you have say that was a difficult life situation? And how did you deal with that?
Well, look, I'm going to preface by saying I don't think I'm the right person to ask about how to handle the work situation. Because I wasn't working there full time. I was like only working a few days a week. And so I don't think neither of us would be that good at answering the thing with the work situation. We've never really been in one of those proper office scenarios. So again, I genuinely don't know what I would say there. And I don't want to steer him on the wrong path. So I'm just going to say I genuinely can't help you with the whole new job thing.
I guess we can sort of answer it from a perspective when difficult life situations general.
Well, okay. So the first thing you need to understand is this, in my experience, is that life is full of sacrifices. You got to make a choice. You can't do everything, and you can't do everything to some extreme degree. The chances that you're going to be able to push from master tier to challenger while trying to adapt to a new job, while keeping a balanced life and working out and eating well, is probably next to zero. So I'm just going to say that straight up, right? Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean, like you said, it's going to stay like that forever. But if it were me, if I were in a similar situation, and like I did in my scenario when I was at university, I had my priorities. And as you know, Nathan, league wasn't my priority. League took the back seat. I underperformed. I didn't play that well. I made it very clear that I didn't really care as much. And as a result, I quit the split after. And I made that very clear. And in my mind, my priorities were my school and my job, right? And my relationship at that time. And so I realized that I had to cut something out. And I think for you, if I were in that situation, I would be directing a lot of my attention to my real life situation, going out of my way to, really bust my balls at work, come in super focused, high energy, caffeinated up, doing everything. I need to tick every box, ask plenty of questions. If I need to stay overtime, just do everything I can to get myself in a position where I can be comfortable in my environment, go out of my way to meet people.
Try and get myself out of this difficult work situation as fast as possible will be my only focus.
Exactly. That would be my main focus.
Whatever field you're in, study the craft, learn more about it than all your peers.
Yes.
You will accelerate there. That should be your focus.
That's right. That should be your focus.
League's not going anywhere.
Exactly. Whether you take a few months off from league, it's not going anywhere. And look, what you could do is be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try and go on. I know I'm going to probably not stay at this rank, but I'm going to maybe stagnate, if not slowly decline over a little bit. That's okay. Let's say you do a 2-block a night. Or maybe you only do a two block every second night. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go from master maybe to D2, D3, D4. That's okay. At least you're somewhat keep in touch with the game. Then once you're familiar with a real life situation, boom, you can reintegrate league into your life. But again, for now, your hobby is not your priority. Your work situation is your priority. And I would be doing everything I can to be on. And that's actually honestly one of my regrets. If I were to go back in time, I really regret not making more of an effort at that was like kind of my first proper job in the workforce when I was doing surveying. Really, I feel like I could have juiced that experience more. I could have made more of an effort to network with people, talk to people, actually be, and actually take my job seriously. And I feel like I would have got more out of it if I did that. And that's probably one of my regrets, but I was just too young to realize that. So if I were to go back in time, I would put way more effort. I would view it less of a job and more like, how could I get really good at this skill? But I didn't have that mentality.
Yep. So TLDR, sum it up. If you have a difficult life situation, your only focus should be, how do I get out of this situation? All your attention and effort goes into that. League, your hobbies, they take a back seat for brief period of time.
Yep.
And you seem quite young. The problem with young people, they have a very poor perception of time.
Yeah.
Like they think 6 months is like, because it's literally like a 10th or a 20th of their life, right? Sorry, like a 40th, I guess, if you're 20 and 6 months. It's your perception's really poor. Like you can create a great situation for yourself in just like a year of hardcore focus, 2 years, and in the grand scheme of things, that is nothing.
Yep, league's not going anywhere anytime soon, man.
All right, our next one here looks like a success story. We'd like to highlight these here and there. This one is from Ray. The title of this one is Importance of the Process and Reviews. Personal story. Curtis and Nathan, keep up the good work as usual. Came back to the league after not playing for a while and wanted to highlight a quick personal story and note why what you're doing is so important. I finished a game yesterday with a monster early game on Kindred that should have been an easy snowball victory. My immediate takeaway was frustration and that league is not fun in the mid-game due to my teammates being able to int and absolutely throw a game. Upon completing my review session the following day, I was surprised to see how wrong I was in the moment. It was my major mistakes that gave the enemy team a window into victory, and my mispositioning, not my teammates, that led to this. Because of the review process, I come out of this league experience with learning and understanding instead of the typical lol mentality, teammates entered, griefed, and they all suck. That type of mentality is detrimental to the game and hobby and will snowball bad thoughts continually versus the atmosphere you have helped create and foster through this process. Keep up the great work.
Love it. That's what the podcast is all about.
He's training the muscle. He's built his toolkits. He's not confused. This is why review process is just so important.
And having more fun with his hobby.
Yeah.
Having a more enjoyable experience.
Once you understand it, you're not confused. League is a lot of fun. People just really struggle to grasp that 100%. Concept.
Love it.
So let's keep it up. Keep reviewing. Keep 3-blocking, right?
Keep chipping away.
All right. Last one we'll do here is from Eric. Title of this email is Nervousness from Winning Too Much. Hello, Curtis and Nathan. This is a quick mail after seeing your latest BBC episode. I have something of a related problem. I'm currently on a 10-plus game win streak and 80% win rate over my last 25-ish games. I've basically gone straight from Silver 4 to Gold 3. This is making me really uneasy and makes it harder for me to queue up for every win. Since I am nervous, I will just have the opposite happen, and if I lose, a straight loss streak to bronze is waiting. Really thankful for all of your videos and how that helps my mental to continue playing. And your link is OPGG. Nervousness from winning too much.
Good sample size of games there.
Great. So we've got 400 games here.
Okay.
Mostly on Smolder. Okay. So this is the win streak. Whoops. All right. So I don't know how to sort of navigate this question, Curtis, but Smolder is in a very strong
I don't even want to get into this.
You don't want to get into
I don't
that?
think so. You know what the way I view it?
What's that?
Is, again, like you talk about a lot about this, Nathan, is that you got to think long term.
Yeah.
It's about the skills that you're developing, right? So the reality is this. Let's say you did get on a lucky win streak, right? Let's say you did, right?
Things click. And
let's say worst case scenario, Nathan. What's worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is that you learnt nothing in these games. You just got lucky. You're playing an OP champion, blah, 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 blah. And you're not really a gold 3 level of play. You don't want to be gold anyway then, right?
That's right.
The reality is that you want to be a gold level player. So if the reality is that you didn't deserve to be a gold level player anyway, it's a win-win scenario. You would want to go back to the rank, so you actually want to learn the game properly, right? You want to just train your brain to thinking about the behaviors and the learnings that I'm taking and the skills that I'm developing as a player, period. Whether you fluctuate from Silver 2 to Gold 3 or Silver 4 to Silver 1, it doesn't really matter in the short term, because in the long term, the rank will always settle on the rank that you need to be. It will always adjust. And so if I were you, yeah, you might fluctuate. You might not. You might stick around. You might have this might have been the rank that you deserve to be now that you've improved. I don't know. And you don't even know. You shouldn't even try to engage in this thought process. It's like, okay, if I keep my head down, keep doing my 3 blocks, make peace with my blocks, take away learnings, set some learning objectives, then wherever I end up in the short term doesn't matter. Where I end up maybe over the next few months, okay, that's That might give me a bit of an indication of, okay, am I going downwards or am I going upwards? Am I stagnating? Maybe do a check-in every 3 weeks. Okay, it's been 3 weeks now. Where am I at? Am I above? Am I lower than what I was? Am I stagnated? Why might that be the case? Okay, so what's going wrong in my play? Am I struggling in the early game? I'm dying a lot in mid-game. What's going on? Maybe set some new learning objectives. Do another 3 to 4 week stint. You want to get out of the habit of constantly checking your rank, right? You want to be, because I think he said that the win streak was over a day or two, right? Like, or even a handful of days. You
can't put too much weight on a single loss or win streak.
Yeah.
It's so dangerous in league.
Too dangerous. You got to think longer, bigger picture, longer time spans. That would be my advice. Don't even engage in this. Yeah, you could sit here and we could analyze, smolder this, shampoo that, meta this. Doesn't matter. Let's just cut the crap and just really get specific about the journey holistically,
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Smolder will change. Things change. You might be better at the game again. We just don't know.
Don't know.
Just relax. You say nervousness from winning too much. It's just going back to you can't be focused on the results. Going to the...
We can't be focused on the results without knowing what led to the wins.
That's right.
And it's hard. Now, if you, let's say, for example, you'd worked on a learning objective and your learning objective was like something very specific and you knew because of this learning objective, you started winning more. Great. Thumbs up. Like maybe you worked on your wave management and you're having better resets or your threat assessment's better, whatever. And you've actively realized how this specific skill you've developed is leading to you to get results. Great. That's good to look at results then because you can be like, okay, I'm getting something from it. But more often than not, though, don't worry too much about the result itself. And this is the same message that I've been trying to get across in Midland School, in your program, in your Salter School. It's just, it's very hard to know early on, especially when you're in the lower ELA brackets, to know specifically what's leading to your wins and losses because there's so much variability. Remember we had that discussion about there are many ways to be in silver or gold. There are not many ways to be in master, right? As in like the amount of variation in the ways you can get to master tier versus the amount of ways in variation that you can get to silver or gold is completely different because a master tier player or a high diamond player, you already know for a fact, we can all agree upon all diamond players know this stuff, no matter what.
Champ mastery, like a level of tempo, basing,
they understand
resets,
what all the champs do.
Item spikes, team fighting, they have a baseline level.
You know what I mean? They have a baseline level and everything. But when you're in silver and gold, there is so many ways you can get to that rank. So we have no idea why you're at that rank. Even me, as an experienced coach, it can take me a while to actually realize why you're at that rank, what your skills are, how you've navigated your specific league journey. So again, don't even try to begin to psychoanalyze it. Just focus on picking skills, working on those skills, keep chipping away, intensity 3 blocks, and then let the rank work its magic, and then do those reflections, check back in your rank every now and then.
Yep.
That's my response.
Yep, I agree. I think that's well said. Nothing more really to add there. It just comes down to really trusting, I think, the rank system, Curtis.
Yes.
Like it's going to reflect your level of play. Yes, you can have fluctuations, but it's always going to be representative of your again, it could be skill level with Smolder. You're a gold 3 Smolder, but you might not be a gold 3 player.
I love that. Just let the rank system do its work. You gotta trust it. It always works in the long run. Love it.
All right. Well, that's it for today's episode, everyone. Learning about tilt, understanding a bit more about ourselves. As always, Curtis, we're trying to explore the human mind of the BBC episode universe. We'll see you guys next week.